Trucker Dump for April 13th, 2010, Episode 41, Trucking in the Northeast.
Welcome to Trucker Dump, where you'll get one driver's insights and sometimes humorous views of truck driving and the trucking industry, and pretty much anything else he feels like dumping on you. This podcast is brought to you by AboutTruckDriving.com. Resources to help you understand the world of truck driving through the use of stories and a pathetic attempt at humor.
Hey there, Todd McCann here. You may have noticed lately that these blog posts seem to be getting less frequent. You aren't dreaming. Due to the nature of trucking and the hectic schedules we keep, I can't guarantee a podcast on a regular schedule. Sometimes I can get 3 in per month. Sometimes it's only 1. My goal is to put one out every 2 weeks, but you can see how successful I've been at that. Take this post. It was the only one in April. But I have to say, I think it's a rather good one. Have a listen and let me know if I'm delusional or not. Here we go with Trucking in the Northeast. I've been needling the West Coast for quite a while now. First, there was my blog post about Oregonians called Too Stupid to Fuel. If you haven't heard that one or read it, check it out on abouttruckdriving.com or get it on iTunes. Then on Twitter, I've been bashing California and Oregon for the ridiculous 55-mile-an-hour truck speed limits. Washington State isn't much better at 60 mile an hour. Now let me aim my shotgun of disdain at the other coast. Let me further limit it to the Northeast. I really don't hate the Northeast all that much. Other than the traffic, the road restrictions, the way the towns were built, and the occasional a-hole with a middle finger that has its own bicep, it's really a lovely place. But for the most part, the Northeast can't be blamed for all this. The fact is, the Northeast was mapped out long before trucks or even automobiles were built. A-holes, on the other hand, choose to be a-holes, so I'm laying that blame right on the a-hole who chooses to be a-holish. Our forefathers had a lot of foresight when it came to that whole Constitution thing, but they were way off the mark when it came to laying out towns. I'm pretty sure that old Ben wasn't anticipating a 70-foot-long vehicle weighing 80,000 pounds, and I'm certain that he'd never seen a 13-foot-6 tall horse and buggy before. That's why when traveling in the Northeast, truckers must always be on their guard when they get off the beaten path. The roads are tight, and there always seems to be a low bridge lurking around the corner. This was renewed in my mind the other night. After receiving 2 different dispatches and having both cancel as soon as they beeped into my truck, I just love that. It was finally settled that I'd pick up a load in Pottstown, Pennsylvania at 1 a.m. As usual, my company sent me all the relevant information, including the directions. As usual, these directions were as trustworthy as a Hollywood spouse. Of course, I didn't know that at the time. I should have anticipated it, but being in a hurry, I didn't. The fun began when I turned off the main road. The first thing I saw was a long, somewhat narrow bridge. Beside it was that sign that every trucker loves to see. You know, the one that inevitably posts weight restrictions that you can't possibly meet. Well, at this point, there was no backing up and no turning around. Having an empty trailer at the time, I wasn't that much over the weight limit. And since I didn't see a fleet of cop cars, I proceeded slowly. Not falling into a cold, icy grave made me happy. Figuring the worst was over, I continued to follow my directions. As the evil overlord was happy to point out later, I'm not real bright sometimes. I came to a T-section and took a left and then a quick right, just as the directions said. About a quarter mile down the road, I saw one of those glow-in-the-dark yellow signs. I immediately became leery, but since it looked close to the ground, I plunged on ahead. As I approached, I realized that the road started to go downhill, and that's why the sign looked so close to the ground. Uh-oh. Last time I checked, a 13-foot-6 vehicle can't fit under an 11-foot bridge. Nuts. Being focused on that cursed yellow sign, I hadn't noticed the 2 cars that had crept up behind me. As I reached for the trusty iPhone, the first car came up beside me. He stopped and rolled down his passenger window. Forgetting I was in the Northeast, I was expecting the guy to ask if I needed some directions around the low bridge. Instead, I got, "Hey buddy, how about some flashers?" While it was true that I hadn't bothered to turn on my flashers, it was 1 a.m. and there hadn't been a car in sight. I hadn't been stopped for more than 10 seconds. Pointing at the low bridge, I said, "Sorry, my focus was on that." In typical a-hole fashion, he said, "Oh, and drove off. No sorry. No, you need a hand. No, gee, guess I'm an a-hole. At least the next car just drove right past. No help, but at least I didn't have to talk to another a-hole. I called the shipper to get some directions that wouldn't involve a truck decapitation, but of course it went directly to voicemail. I found out later that the guard had stepped away from his desk for a few minutes. Of course he had. Nice timing. Next, I pulled up the directions on Google Maps. Oh, so that's where my company got those directions. Even though I couldn't follow their recommended route, at least I had a map of the city, so I winged it. Luckily, there was a huge empty parking lot right beside me, so I whipped a U-turn and took what looked like the biggest road on the map. When I got back to the street I was supposed to turn on, all I could see were houses. Since trucks in residential areas are normally as compatible as Bobby and Whitney, I kept on going. I finally found another road big enough to turn onto and made my way back to the pinpoint on the map. It was there all right, tucked in the middle of a town surrounded by houses, but it was there. Now, where to turn in? Nope, not that first entrance. That's the employee parking lot. There was barely enough room for a U-turn. Maybe on down the residential road a bit. Nope, no gate down there. So now I'm stuck backing up for a quarter mile in a dark residential street line with cars. Man, I love trucking sometimes. Holy crap, what was that? I swore I saw something move behind me. It seems that I almost backed over the security guard. I'm guessing this guy was a hide-and-seek master in his youth, as he went from hiding from a phone to hiding behind a moving semi in the matter of a few minutes. I'm also guessing he was about as bright as the street I was on. He informed me that I was at the right location, but I was supposed to be at the back entrance. After getting directions and taking a couple of tight little nasty corners that had me dodging cars that were parked in front of houses, the gate finally came into sight. But wait. Seeing what awaited me, I parked down the street and walked towards the gate. There were cars parked in front of houses on one side of the street and trucks parked on the other. At the gate, the intercom assured me that I was in the right place. On my way back to the truck, another fine citizen of Pottstown came out onto his porch smoking a cigarette. Once again, the naive optimist inside of me was expecting a witty comment about how tight it was going to be. Foiled again. Shocking me back to reality, he said, "You going to sit out here and idle your truck all night?" Why, yes, Dill Munch, that is exactly what I had planned to do. Here I was, walking back to my truck from the gate while my truck sat in the middle of the road with its headlights on. Clearly that was my plan. I simply said no and kept walking. As they say, if you don't have anything good to say... Being evil and all, the evil overlord called him by his appropriate name. She didn't use asterisks, though. Gotta love her. She's like that little red devil sitting on my shoulder. I'm the white angel that keeps getting jabbed in the face with her pitchfork. Thank God the evil overlord was awake, though. It's times like that where you say a silent thank you to the engineer who designs these trucks. So that's why our side mirrors fold in. It was that tight. With the mirrors folded in and both our heads hanging out the window like a couple of joyriding slobberhounds, we slowly crept forward. We had a whole 6 inches to spare on each side. After getting loaded, we went back through the truck funnel using the same process. Once out on the street, I was tempted to take Mr. A-hole's suggestion to sit idling beside his house, but I went on down to where there weren't any houses to do my paperwork. 1 point for the angel. Having gotten the proper directions from the shipper, we went back out a different way, so it seems like there was a way to avoid drowning and decapitation after all. So anyway, I can't blame everything on the Northeast. I'm guessing that weight-restricted bridge was built years before trucks got so darn huge. Same goes for the low underpass. Some good directions would have avoided that trouble, not that my company can be bothered with such trivial matters. As for the a-holes, well, I'm afraid there's no avoiding them. At least not until some enterprising young proctologist invents an a-hole detector anyway.
Hey, yo, bud, where do you want this load of feedback?
Okay, we're back to discuss the power of the patch. Got some comments from a couple of regulars and a couple of newbies. After the last rant about BLCZZ999, let's start with her. I do like her. I swear, people, I do like her. She's funny. She writes, most times the power of the patch goes to some people's heads. The misgiven authority makes these people think they're just one step under the company president. And you're correct, the majority aren't bad people, neither has the power and authority gone straight to their heads. Very good. Enjoyed your videos of the Arizona rest area, too. Oh yeah. I put out a couple of videos on Twitter of some great big huge rocks in an Arizona rest area. I have no idea where they're at now. I don't think they're on my YouTube channel. Anyway, you know, one thing I'm grateful for is most of these security guards don't get a gun. J.E. Burke, who I believe is new. Welcome, Jay. He says, oh, how I know exactly what you mean. The patch of self-importance. We must, as you so succinctly articulated, though, remember that one bad apple should not speak for the whole. Not all drivers, firemen, policemen, security men or women are created the same. But on the same token, we all need to remember that we are indeed ambassadors to our profession. Patch or no patch. Regards, Jay. Well, Jay, you're right. There are bad apples in every occupation. I'll try to remember that the next time I get pulled over. Thanks for leaving your thoughts. Helmet or Heels is back. She writes in, enjoy reading about your life experiences. Keep writing. Red Bull is so overrated. There's nothing good about it. Hate the taste and doesn't have much of a vitamin substance. Okay, I'll admit it. I'm a vitamin snob. Keep on writing, Mr. McCann. Well, Helmet or Heels, you don't have to be a vitamin snob to find the taste of Red Bull nasty. And what are these things called vitamins anyway? They sound good for you. I sure hope they put them in Twinkies. Trucking Jobs is new too. He just writes in, says simply, thanks for posting and sharing this information with your public. I really enjoyed reading it. Thank you and keep posting. Regards, Chase. Well, Chase, glad to do it. Thanks for stopping by. Come on back anytime. I won't chase you off. Oh dear God, that was horrible. I apologize. And lastly, George F. says, very interesting post. The patches truly has a great power. You can get such patches made at Butler Patches, who can offer you great quality and design patches at affordable prices. Butler Patches. I think I just got spammed. You know, and that does remind me, I'm glad that was the last one, because I would like to say that every once in a while, Gmail gets a little aggressive on my spam. And every once in a while, I find something in my spam folder that shouldn't be in there. Something legit that I really wanted to see. So, if you've ever sent me a comment and I haven't responded to it, you haven't heard it on the podcast, or I haven't written you back directly, please send me a DM on Twitter or at me on Twitter or something and, you know, say, hey, what's up, dork? Did you get my email or what? Because I don't want to miss that kind of stuff. Now it's time to blast George F. from the blog. And it's also time to blast your comments over to me. Send them as text or send them as audio. I'm ready for them all. Bring them on. As usual, here's all my contact info. I believe I may have just set a record on using the word a-hole in a podcast. So what do you have to say about the Northeast and its inhabitants? Come on, Northeasterners. I dare you to leave a comment explaining why y'all are so freaking grumpy. Of course, I'm fully aware that I'm going to have to edit some asterisks into it. Just type Northeast into the search bar at abouttruckdriving.com and let me have it. You can also reach me by email at truckerdump@gmail.com, and I'm at Todd McCann over in Twitterland. That's 2 D's, 2 C's, and 2 N's. And if you haven't left an iTunes review yet, well, shame on you. Thanks for listening. So until next time, drive safe and stay out of my way.